For the general form of the equation of a circle, it's given by x squared plus y squared plus dx plus ey plus f equal to 0. This is very complicated looking, and we cannot tell what is the center, what is the radius by looking at it. So we need to change this to look like this. And we'll see how we're going to do that in a minute. But before we continue, once we change this format to this format, we might end up with 3 different situations, all depending on the right hand side, which is the constant. If this constant is positive, then it is representing my r squared. Then I'm going to have a circle, and that circle is going to have a center, which is a square root of c. But what if I did write it in this format and I ended up with this equals 0? In this case, we have only a single point, and that point is hk. Now, if we rewrote it from this format to this format, we'll show you how in a minute, and ended up with x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equal to a negative number. So let's recap. I have something squared plus something squared equal to a negative number. That cannot happen because that's a positive. Added to a positive, it cannot be negative. So if we ended up that there's a negative number, then this equation is a wrong equation, and the graph does not exist. We have a graph of a nothing. So I was keeping it a mystery. So now how do we go from this format to this format? We go by completing the square. But this time we're going to complete the square in both the x and the y. So what do we do? Let's look at this. All these ABCDs are the same question. Let's read it. Decide whether or not the equation has a circle as its graph, and if it does, give the center and the radius. If it does not, describe the graph. So it could be a point or it could be non-existent. So here's my equation, and I put it nicely for you, meaning the x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 10y plus 18 equals 0. So we need to complete the square in the x and the y. So we're going to keep the x's, and the first step is to cosmetic is to keep a space for completing the square, plus put the y's together, keep a place to complete the square, move the constant to the right hand side. Now we're going to complete the square in the first one, divide the coefficient of x by 2, which is 3, and square, you get a 9, add it to both sides of the equation. Same thing for the y, complete the square. Then miraculously we get a nice equation that is in the center radius form, so we know what is the center and what is the radius. So let's practice a lot. Okay, so here are the examples we're going to do together. So I did that first one, but now we're going to do one together. So here we go. For B, so let's see, first one we're going to do it like I said, put the x squared plus the 4x, leave a space to complete the square. Please don't forget there's a plus here, because some people will forget the plus and that means they're multiplied, but they are not. Plus, put the y squared minus the 8y, leave a space to complete the square, and move the constant to the right hand side, so the negative 44 is going to become positive. Now we're going to complete the square in the x's, so take the coefficient of x, divide by 2 is 2, and square is 4. And now what do? Is we add the 4 to both sides of the equation, because you cannot add it to only one side of the equation. Same thing with the y squared minus 8y, take the coefficient of y, which is 8, divide by 2 is 4, and square is 16. And now this is a complete square. We did that in chapter 1. This is x, the square root of the first, the square root of the last, oops, it's a 2, and the sign of the middle. So the square root of the first, the square root of the last, the sign of the middle. So that's the complete square here, plus square root of the first, square root of the last, the sign of the middle. And now adding all these, that's a 20, so that's 64. And now you'll see that it is a beautiful, now we know that it's a circle with center at -2, +4, and radius, the square root, which is 8, square root of 64. Okay, so let's look at the next one, which is not already in the x's together and y's together. X squared plus y squared minus 6x plus 2y plus 9 equals 0. So remember, you need to put the x's together. So I have x squared minus 6x, leave a space to complete the square, plus I have the y squared and a plus 2y, leave a space to complete the square, equal to, move the constant to the right hand side. And now let's complete the square. Take the coefficient of x, divide by 2, which is 3 and squared, that gives me a 9, add it to both sides of the equation. Take the coefficient of x, divide by 2, gives you 1, square is 1, add it to both sides of the equation. And now this is the square root of the first, the square root of the last, the sign of the middle, squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to, the 9 went with the 9 and I have a 1. So again we have a circle with center at 3, -1, and the radius is 1. Let's look at the next one. Put the x's together, x squared minus 6x, leave a space to complete the square, plus put the y squared minus the 6y, leave a space to complete the square, is equal to, move the constant and it's going to become -18. Now when we complete the square in the x, divide the divide the 6 by 2, 3 and square is 9, add it to both sides of the equation. Same thing for the y, add it to both sides of the equation. So now let's see what we have. We have an x minus 3 squared plus y minus 3 squared is equal to, if you add these, you're going to get a 0. So now we do not have a circle, we have a point, and this point is 3, 3, H and K. Last example, and then you have one to do on your own, and then tackle the homework. X squared minus 6x, a place to complete the square, plus y squared plus 2y, a space to complete the square, and move the constant to the right hand side so it becomes -12. Now to complete the square, we have the 6, divide by 2, 3 and square is 9, add it to both sides of the equation. Take the coefficient of y, divide by 2 is 1 and square, that's 1, add it to both sides of the equation. Let's see what we have now. X minus 3, square root of the first, square root of the last, the sign of the middle, plus y plus 1 squared is equal to, if you add these two, 9 and 1 is 10, that will give me -2. So remember, I cannot have something squared plus something squared equal to a -1, so this is the non-existent. There is no graph. And I left this one for you to try it, and I'll put the answer for you in a minute.